All right, if I could have everybody's attention, it is almost time to start back up. If I could have the board come back, that'd be great. All right, thank you, everyone. It is 6 o'clock. We'll begin our meeting again. Congratulations again to all those retiring, Stephen McCarg, Jeff Zanazek, Linda Cheney, and Kara Honeycutt. Thank you all for everything you did. All right, board. The first action item is our consent agenda. We had the opportunity to review these items individually and seek clarification from district admin prior to our meeting. I would entertain a motion.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Kathy has moved that we approve the consent agenda and Cindy has seconded. Board, any questions or discussion? I'll call a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, consent agenda has passed. All right, board takes us into the first, administration. And first up, we have our student reports.
Good evening. So we had the honor of visiting Morgan 2 weeks ago, and we were able to get a lot of good information. So I'm just gonna start off by saying they're doing great. Like Morgan, it has definitely changed for the better since we were there, and it was so great to see their improvements and what they're doing, and it's just all really cool. So first, we asked about their ASB, and what they're doing is really cool with student recognition. They're doing a lot of it now, and ASB has actually taken on the role of talking about Student of the Month and their achievement recognition, and they do that every single month now, and it sounds like a really great time. And then a little bit more on that student recognition, something that they want to improve on is to get more of that student recognition to feel more a little more personal and more given to them as sort of, I don't know, what's the word?
They just ask for it to be more like genuine instead of just a broad scope.
Mm-hmm. And then moving on to their Power program. So Morgan has been doing their Power tickets for a while. They were there when we were there, and students still feel like that's a really strong motivator, and especially for those younger grades because it's like an incentive and they can use it, and it's just motivation. And what they said that it varies by grade, and so I think that's really important to take into account that even though it's 3 years, each grade is very different, and so keeping in mind what that motivation is pretty important. And then the next thing we asked about was the school climate and culture. It's definitely something that they think that they could work on. And again, it's very dependent on the people and the environment, and again, the grade. And so keeping in mind that the differences between the age groups is what they want to work on. And then lastly, we asked them about their discipline and their supervision. And unfortunately, they feel that discipline isn't taken seriously. They do think that there is a good amount of it, but they would like to change on how the follow through is or how it is implemented at Morgan. Yeah.
So continuing on with that, some cool things we saw were so Mrs. Smith, she's now in charge of their ASB program, and she's doing an incredible job by just really trying to bring more student involvement, formals, so like a little dance thing. And this year they did mascot tryouts, which I heard was really fun for a lot of the kids, and they've been pestering her every single day trying to figure out who the mascot is for school spirit. And so they're just having a really fun time with that, and they will reveal who the mascot is at the last assembly. They've really loved doing socials, career fairs, 5Ks, all sorts of fun stuff that's new. And Tong and I were very jealous. We were like, we didn't have that at all. they really are enjoying their teachers and they're having a great time with them. They feel like they're very accessible and they're really engaging with them in a positive way. But they are just dealing with just just that they feel like kindness initiatives could be stronger. They feel like discipline isn't super consistent. And they just, yeah, they're just concerned because they're like, at times it just doesn't feel super safe because if we go to teachers or people that we trust and then we don't feel like much happened after that. And then they're also, we talked to some students and they expressed fear about going into high school, not because of the people or anything, but they don't really know about like what's next after middle school. What do we do in high school? And so they asked us to talk to you guys and see if there could be more like maybe the middle schoolers go, like the eighth graders maybe go see like the high school or something like that, or just have high schoolers down there to speak to them more often about like what happens in high school. They really liked being able to talk to us, and they asked some really good questions. They just feel like the current info about what's next and in high school is kind of unclear, and so they just would like that. But overall, it was really, really good to talk to the middle schoolers, and it was fun to hear them and what they think could be better, but what they also think is really great. And all in all, I think that there's a lot of great things that Morgan is doing to help prepare, to help their kids feel like they're enjoying middle school, and they really feel as if it's really encouraging them to grow and to get better every single day.
All right. Thank you, guys. Board, any questions for?
Yutong, is there anything happening with our track team? Do you not want to say it? I'll say it.
The middle school or the high school? You could say.
High school track team is off to state. Amari, I don't know the rest of them. So like if there's other teams, like jump in. I think everyone's off to state, but Yutong is going to represent Ellensburg again in the hurdles. And anything else? The 4x4. So best of luck to you. You've been a powerhouse out there all season. So
I have a question, Troy. So on that note of the eighth graders being a little shy of going to high school, do we have an open house kind of at the
Yes.
beginning of the year for that? Okay, so we do have
they have an eighth grade
something.
night, but there's always new ideas to put with that. So I don't know how well attended their night was this year. Usually it's pretty well. I mean, they
Okay.
report that it's pretty well attended, but I don't know exactly what that means.
I do have a question. Who did you talk to? Did you go to the ASB meeting, or like how many kids did you talk to? And was there a time when any kid that wanted to could come and meet with you, or what was the process?
We were kind of intentional with not just speaking with ASB because we know that they have kids who are pretty involved. And so we made sure to talk to ASB because, you know, they kind of know what's happening, but also students who were just kind of in the halls. We talked to them a little bit. And Mrs. Smith was really nice and she pulled some kids out of class.
I do feel like next time if this were to happen, just so that we could get a broader scope of more students, I feel like we did get a good amount, but I feel like the ones that we did get the most were ones that came up to us because they saw that we were older, and then kids we knew, and then a lot of ASB and kids that were already heavily involved. So I think next time, probably just a little bit more warning for them to know that we are coming if they do have stuff that they want to talk to us about. But yeah, it was a really good experience.
I have two questions for you. So on the transition to high school, you two having done this more recently than the rest of us, are there things that you would recommend that you would think of that would like kind of just smooth that transition apart from the orientation?
I think for me, what helped me the most, and this won't apply for every kid, but I did marching band going into the year in cross country. So I did a lot of like, I tried to get involved with high school stuff early on so that going into high school, I knew a lot of people. So I think for me, if I were to give advice to people, it would be try to find as many things that you could kind of dip your fingers into right away to get involved with. But I also think having high schoolers down there at some point for kids to ask them questions would just be super beneficial because I knew that I had 1,000,001 questions going into high school. And if I didn't have like the upperclassmen people that I knew and that I met over the summer before my freshman year, I think I probably would have been a lot more nervous going into it.
I think a really fun idea that we could do is having the middle schoolers come up for a day and they can like have a buddy and it's like spend a day with a high schooler. And I think that'd be really good just so they're kind of even seeing what it's like to go around the high school and what it's like to be in that environment.
And then my second question is, did you hear any feedback about the phone pouches?
I heard a little bit from some was they're like, oh, it's more emphasized and it's more of a thing. I did talk to some of the kids there and there weren't that many negatives. They're like, of course it was an adjustment, but for most of them, they're like, it's just another hoop you jump through. Like for most of them, I don't think they had too much of a problem with it because they're like, there's times for us to use them, just not during class anymore. So I think for a lot of kids are like, yeah, the pouches are definitely being just like you hang them over your door and you stick them like in a pouch sort of thing, not like the yonder pouches or anything. But yeah, so I think for the kids, at least the kids I talked to, they didn't have any problems with it at all.
And just an idea, last study session, we had the prevention club come and speak to us. And since Tong, you'll still be on the school board as a representative next year, maybe reach out to them for some ideas because they had a lot of really fun ideas of interacting with the high schoolers and maybe they can help you translate that to the junior high or get them involved with you in the junior high and stuff like that. So
It's a great idea.
all right, Tong, you asked to be released and you may. Good luck at state to you and all the others. So thank you. Amari, you're stuck with us. All right, board. Next up for administration.
Mike, we're going to acknowledge Amari here during his last meeting. Tong's not going to walk out on him well for this part, but Amari's been with us for 2 years and done an incredible job. He's offered a great deal of insights. When we've gone to the WASDA conference, he's been an active participant with other student representatives and represented the students of Ellensburg High School with great class. And we are very much going to miss him as he moves off in his future endeavors in Pullman. And so we will have Amari, if we could have you just kind of stand in the middle. I've got a card for you and a little present and a certificate, and then we'll have you shake everybody's hands. But we like a round of applause for Amari Thorne and all his service.
I really was going to make you wait, Amari. All right. If you would like to leave and not have to listen to the 37 pages, you are welcome to. No, I'm just teasing. Okay. Next up under administration. And again, congratulations, Amari. Thank you. Teaching and learning update. We have curriculum adoption. Jen?
Yeah, so I would like to just start by thanking everyone who is involved in the process, including some of the teachers who are here to present on the materials we are requesting for adoption this year. It's a lot of work to go through an adoption process on top of your normal routines and duties, to go from doing a deep needs assessment on what we have and what we need to putting RFPs out there and following all of the things about RFPs and what all that means and reviewing the materials that come back and comparing them and trying to implement lessons with students alongside your already adopted curriculum that you're utilizing. So it's a lot. So I just want to say thank you to the people who are here. Them being here is just a small part of what they are doing in support of this adoption process. So I'm excited for them to help prepare and show you guys what we have come up with this year for adoptions. So just as a reminder, this year we're looking at a couple of high school English texts. This is out of adoption cycle looking at English right now, but we have philosophy coming back after having been out of rotation for a while. So we wanted to refresh the course with a couple of texts. High school science, this was a science adoption year. And it ended up that high school was the only grade band that was looking to get new materials. And then high school social studies, because last year was a social studies year, and the high school in particular had asked if they could put that off a year and see if anything with the new elections and potentially new additions and publications might impact their decision on what they wanted to adopt. So it is all high school this year for various reasons, but that's what we've got. And so I'll start with high school English. Shannon wasn't able to be here tonight, but for the philosophy course, we are looking to add Candide and Crime and Punishment. There is a link to the rubrics there that have been filled out. I'm sure you've had a chance to look at those. Whoops. For high school science, I'll come back to these, obviously, but for high school science, those are the courses: anatomy and physiology, biology, biotechnology. You can see them all there with links to the texts and links to the rubrics. And then that is the list of high school social studies. So the teachers that are here will go through each of those for you. And if you have any questions about any of them, they're here to help answer them. I've also linked to the IMC and community feedback. Actually, there was no community feedback. So we put a request for it. If there's anyone who wants to come see it or leave a comment on the materials we're hoping to adopt, and nothing came in. But you will see there the IMC feedback. I do think it's important to note, just because the recommendation of the IMC is an important part of the adoption process. And so I wanted to point out that, sorry, I have to shrink it to hit the right button there, that there was support for all of the texts across the board, with the exception of out of the 9 IMC members, 1 person voted to not support the BioZone NGSS biology. And I have linked for you, and hopefully you had a chance to review it, but the publishers. So the reason they voted no was because Ed Reports had said that this particular text does not meet state standard or NGSS. So I linked to the publisher's response, which I think is very robust, and I'm sure that they are happy to talk about it as well. But one important thing on that publisher's response that I just want to pull up for you is the alignment document that shows you how each of their activities or lessons, there are 3 pieces that Ed Reports is looking for, the 3 major pieces of NGSS: science and engineering practices, cross-cutting concepts, and disciplinary core ideas. And Ed Reports, when they review it, they require that all 3 of those components be in every single activity. And the publisher's response points out, and I think in conversations with the teachers, they would agree that that's not necessarily required to have strong instruction. And in fact, in some cases, it might get in the way of it as in a sequence of various activities. And as part of their response, the NGSS lead states statement back when NGSS came out, and the National Research Council said that there are many approaches to science instruction that could be consistent with the vision in the NGSS documents. And so looking across, you will see that they clearly have all of the NGSS components across all units, represented in all units, and almost all three of these that they look for in every activity, but you'll see some that doesn't include one of those components. And again, thinking about the way instruction happens and the way activities happen, that seems completely logical. So anyhow, that's just the way the Ed Reports scored it. And so I wanted to address that just to make sure that that was put out there. Whoops. Sorry. So starting with English, I'll just get these two done first since Shanlin isn't here. So Candide is one, and she describes how she plans to cover Candide in semester 1 of the course to cover the Enlightenment. And then Crime and Punishment, she plans to utilize in semester 2 when looking at the philosophy of ethics. So both of those texts are very well regarded for use in those things. She also collaborated with CW Philosophy Department, knowing that she is hopeful, we are hopeful that the philosophy course will become a college and the high school course in the future. So did some collaborating with Central on potentially what type of text to use and creating syllabus, et cetera. So these are two after that process that she is putting forward. And rather than stopping after each one for a vote, I think it makes sense to do it at the end. And if there's any in particular that you want to pull out of as part of a conversation, we can do that. The cost of English is relatively cheap because they're just, oh, and I forgot I was gonna, if you guys want to peruse a novel, just because they're just class sets of novels. So it's only $600 for the cost of these books. But do you have any questions about the two English proposed texts? Okay, so we will move on to science. And Kevin, I think that you had deferred to Eric on the clicker, thinking that maybe they were going first, but science is up first. So you want to grab that clicker.
Yep. Check, check. There we go. Well, we're going to cost you a little bit more money, hopefully. So no, it won't be 600. Thanks for having us tonight. Jen, thanks for inviting us to talk to the board about this process. Liz Zettner and myself are here to talk, answer any questions you might have. And I think I'll ask Liz to start when I figure out how to use the clicker. Is it the middle button?
Right.
Right arrow, got it.
Should be, you have to aim it in a certain place, wherever you just went.
Oh, good. Did I skip 2?
You did a great job.
Oh, perfect.
So the interesting thing about the adoption of most of the texts for science this year is that so many of these classes are college and high school classes. And so all of the texts that we chose were recommended and accepted by, thank you, tall man, by the universities that we are partnering with for college and the high school. So that made it pretty easy for us. Essentials of anatomy and physiology being one. I'm failing. Oh, this, Jen, I really appreciate you bringing to the attention of the board the responses to the Ed report. The only thing that I would add is something that you all know. The textbook doesn't teach the kids. We do it, and we make sure we cover everything that we possibly can. We want them to have a quality science experience. So this is just one small piece of everything that we do. But again, Jen, I appreciate what you had to say.
Good lightweight.
Biotechnology, this is unusual. John Arlt has been teaching biotechnology for several years, and he just decided it would be a great idea for the students to have some hard copy of everything that they do. They are very, very lab oriented. They're in the lab almost every day. But he wanted them to have something to refer back to. And he also wanted them to have something that they could refer to if they were absent. And so, this comes from Biorad, and he uses Biorad equipment almost exclusively. It's very good, and the students learn a lot of exceptional skills. Environmental science, again, is one of the courses that is a college in high school. It's also an AP course. So
Definitely need to do an update.
yes. College physics as well, AP, and college in the high school.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you recall, I was before you 10, 11 years ago asking for a chemistry book to be adopted out of cycle. And we're at a point the world has changed. We need a new chemistry book to serve students at Ellensburg High School. And this was actually not a book that was on the radar during IMC process or during this adoption process until near the very end, when we finally changed some partnerships and ended up with College in the Classroom as a result of some collaboration. And so it was a neat thing to have come together. And so please support in this adoption of this particular chemistry book. This should make things neat moving forward. I'm excited for this particular change, especially, and which is one of the reasons I was excited to come see you tonight.
Thank you. Cool. I get to show the cost?
Yeah, I don't know if I rock, paper, scissors on this one.
Okay, let's see.
It's
But we're not done yet.
don't shoot the messenger.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
we'll just look at the numbers. Yeah. Remember, it's not just remember that it's not just books, but we also need things to do science. So please don't mind the extra number on there. We need equipment to go along with that. Jen, was there anything past this? Okay.
There's not. And I would just add that we were actually right on budget for science. We budgeted 150 for this adoption. So
Yeah, I see that as under budget.
yeah, it is under budget. You're right.
If you have any questions, I don't know. Are we waiting till the end for that?
You guys have any questions about the science?
I think they're all reading the science books to see if they have any questions. I opened up to a page and I'm like, no. My kids have loved science. Don't get me wrong. They all love science, but I don't understand it. And you guys are incredible teachers. That's for sure. So, oh yeah. Board, any questions for Liz or Kevin or Jen? All right. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Probably have to pay them to.
Oh, does it have to?
Projected.
Yes, correct.
The chance to read those babies.
Yeah.
For the cake for the community.
You should say that.
I've got a cooler up.
Yeah.
Lawn chairs.
Right, Charlie, you're up.
Are they ready? Oh, you're up.
Are you ready? Yeah. Oh, sorry, I was waiting for the green light. So, new course we're bringing to Ellensburg High School, AP African American Studies. The book that has been selected out of about 3, there was this Engage book, I can't remember the second publisher, but anyway, we're going with this one, which is by BFW Publications, which is the same book that we have for our AP World History. And I think for your AP US History, same publisher. Anyway, long story short, it's college approved text for AP African American Studies. It's skill-centered activities and layout designed for AP assessment. The assessment at the end of the year is framed around an exam and 2 written components, as well as a project, which is really neat. The students actually have 15 days to research, write, and present a project. That's 10% of their AP grade, and I get to grade it myself. So that's going to be kind of interesting. I think it has a well-curated set of primary sources for analysis and practice for exam prompts. It's interdisciplinary, so it's not just history, it's art, it's literature, in conjunction with historical events. The narrative conveys a rich tapestry of history, including a plurality of voices. As you can imagine, with the nature of the course, it is centered on the African American experience in diaspora. But in general, we see a lot of American history brought into it, as well as African history. The first unit is about origins, which is, I think, can be really neat to teach, being an AP World History teacher as well. There's a digital option that I would say has a quite robust platform. It's called Achieve. It is available. Surveying my current AP students, it seems that less than half of them even use a digital version. It's just a textbook they can read. It is more robust. There can be assignments. It can chart homework, retest, etc. I don't personally use that. So my proposals, maybe we do half the order in that digital option, but it's really up to y'all. $120 per hardcover. I'd like to have 30. We have 22 students that have registered, pre-registered. Tong actually was one of them, so I'm excited to have her again as a student. The digital subscription is $40 roughly, and I was, like I said, proposing 15. So that's all I have. Whoops. There you go.
Okay, I'm Eric Wickwire. Nice to see you again, and several of you are familiar. So the first book for me to speak about is actually a brand new textbook for us. I've taught civics and government political science for 21, 22 years, and I've never had a textbook. And it's kind of a common thing for government and current world affairs teachers to invent their own curriculum. And we've utilized, nationally recognized newspapers, and we use the Constitution and things of this nature and piece it together. So there have been conversation going on for several years that we probably should have a textbook for this class. And we found one. It's called United States Government. This is what we'll be using for our Gen Ed civics courses, which happen in the fall. Unfortunately, the publishing company, for some reason, stopped printing hard copies, and which is a bummer because we really appreciate, and our kids really appreciate a hard copy text. So that part is a little bit unfortunate. And it's also a 2018 version of the book. I'm giving you all the negative first, so don't worry, I'll come with some positive. So I kind of suggested to Jen that we might look at maybe going year to year and only purchasing the number of copies that we need for that Gen Ed course. We have kids getting credit for this with other avenues through Running Start and through college and the high school political science, which we already have a textbook for. And so this would be something that I would say, let's not overspend by buying it for 6 years if we can avoid it. And let's not buy, 180 copies if we only need 130. What I liked about the text is it is really strong about civic engagement, and it's fully embedded in all of the chapters multiple times throughout. I kind of like to make up all my own curriculum stuff. I'm not going to be using this text right now because I'm teaching the poli-sci class, but it's got really strong instructional supports for teachers with activity suggestions. It is a highly interactive digital platform, which I think some of the kids, will connect with. There's assessment tools, alternative assessments, Spanish-speaking version, and it's all digital and nicely packaged and ready to go. My big request on this would be like, let's keep our eye on this. And if they pop a 2025 or 2026 version, then let's plug in a re-up on this. It's a little bit, and I looked at several other texts as well, and none of the gen ed, civics, or government texts that we were able to receive were newer. So that's that text.
Eric, can I ask you a quick
Yes,
question about
please.
that then? So if this is a 2018 book, but it's digital copy only, do they have any plans for updates more regularly since it'll only be digital?
I hope so,
Okay.
and I think so.
Okay.
I don't necessarily interface very effectively with the publishing company people. What we did is it was a combination of Jen and I reaching out to all these people and said, hey, send us everything you got, and we're going to go through these things over the course of time. I really tried to get a hard copy text. The same publishing company has ones that's titled Civics, and that's the one that we really wanted. And it was 2018 as well, and we couldn't get either of the hard copies. And my anticipation is that you're not going to leave a government textbook unupdated, between 2025 or, 2018 and 2026 with all the dynamic changes that are occurring and, in this realm of academic study.
And that's something that we are looking into, what the various options are, because with digital licenses, publishers do various things. Sometimes they'll update sort of more supplemental content as it comes. Some companies, if they come out with a new version, will just give you access to the new version, and some don't. So we're trying to figure out what our options are there and determining whether or not is a 1 year, the cost at the end will be a 6-year digital license so that you can see the full cost. But with this particular text, we might not purchase the 6-year digital.
And just another point of clarification on that, like all of these texts on government and civics, they go back in time, and they go back before 1776 and look at, what government is and different types of government. And then they get into, the United States government and our foundations. And over the course of, 16 or 18 chapters work their way towards the present. So there's literally not enough time in a semester to cover all those chapters. So we've pretty much been running on the Constitution and various other activities on amendments, and then using the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal for current issues examination at the same time. The course in the spring is current world affairs. And that's often been sort of fused by the teachers that do this, kind of teach, government in the fall, but also blended with world affairs, and then world affairs in the spring also blended with government. So this is where your social science educator, has an opportunity to be very creative in their approach. The power of having a textbook here is, getting people a little bit more uniformity, from one instructor to another. Which is a good thing, and something that, we can feel coming from the board as well as a value. So I think this is a good starting place for us, and we want to keep our eye on an updated version. We don't see any issues with it, though, so we wouldn't be recommending it.
I hesitate to provoke the ire of the social science educators by not having asked this question of the science educators, but particularly with these texts, I'm wondering, are there textbooks that you've seen that present a bias or an ideological focus rather than the invitation to critical thinking? I'm wondering if that's something that you looked at as you were comparing textbooks and as you put it so euphemistically, the dynamic changes that have happened since 2018, like how different textbooks deal with the range of political views that may be in the classroom and kind of disagreement on basic historical and contemporary facts.
Yeah, great question and highly loaded trap you're trying to push me into here, but humorously. So what I liked about this text is that repeatedly throughout the chapters, it does, let me see, I've actually got a little note here where they call it, what do they call it? They have these boxes where they look at single issues through both sides. Sorry, I could explain it better, but I'm looking for a name for it. Let's see, how can I most diplomatically handle this question? I think the majority of the textbooks that I see are not very interested in drawing political conflict. So my understanding is that textbook publishers, there are certain national standard states that kind of give the green light for textbooks. And if you can't get through like the state of Texas, good luck selling textbooks in the United States. And so the first thing I do, and I know I'm going to talk here for quite a bit, but I shouldn't say I pushed through, but I presented a political science college in the high school text a few years back, and also a sociology textbook a few years back. And the first thing that I did when I got those books before deciding if I liked the book or not was I looked up all the controversial issues that I would think would be hot button issues for people of our community, and scanned through and looked at their handling of these. And it's in the best interest of the publishers. And in my preview, I found they do a very good job on presenting issues as objectively as possible and then showing two political viewpoints. Like my sociology text does like a near left and a far left and a near right and a far right version as well. So it's very commonly done, and they're looking out for this kind of stuff. I've said this before. I think that maybe they even err on the side of maybe not even making any sort of judgment where, say, a history book would make judgment on whether something is right or wrong. We don't look at the Watergate scandal or something and be like, well, Nixon was all right on that. Right. So these textbooks are trying to stay out of the mud, and I think they do a good job at it.
That was a really good answer to a good trap. No, sort of adding on to that, and it's mostly procedural. Assuming that we do a 1-year adoption, which is a deviation from the 6-year adoption, is the assumption then that 2 years from now we do another 1-year adoption from the same publisher? Does it then have to come back to the board for approval? Okay.
Yeah, it would.
Okay.
Based off of our current practice. Yeah.
Okay. Saying that with the caveat of Oklahoma and what they are currently sitting at with their state mandated quickly shifting dynamic situation. So if all of a sudden we had something like Oklahoma, it'd be nice to have board approval.
And Cindy, to answer for AP African American Studies, which is a relatively recent course that has been rather polemical in certain states, Florida, and it is this text that we're going with is the most recent. It's the 3rd edition updated. So there's a 3rd edition and then there's an updated 3rd edition. And that's the one that we're going with because I would say more challenging, like you talk about polemical issues, have been essentially dropped from AP African American Studies.
Jen, can you clarify what you think the process will be for updating this? I just didn't quite track.
once we get all the information from the publisher about what our answer or options are, then we can determine our best path forward. I don't think that we want to commit to 6 years of something that we feel like very likely could be out of date, or something better comes along, or something that also has print, better fitting our needs. So if the option, or if it's clear that the solution should be that we purchase it year to year, then we'll do that until something else comes along. And if that comes along, it would go to the board through the IMC and to the board for approval.
And then if they had an updated version of this, would that just automatically go through then or not? Just for clarity, like this book comes out with a new edition next year, we just run it through again. Okay,
Yeah.
no worries.
Yep. And that's been our current practice with updated editions because it does have updated content. And so the feedback has been, let's make sure that goes through the formal process.
Thank you. Oh, look, I probably already said all this.
Yep. Yeah, you did.
And I even have the name of that thing I couldn't remember. You guys have been provided all these all of our texts rate high on all these things. And just to comment on something that was said by the science department. Some of these rubrics, like this Washington State Quality Review rubric, some of these things I think rest on the instructor more than on the textbook, as far as, modifying instruction, et cetera. And, but they still rate really high. So unless you stop me, I just included these for eye candy. Okay, so the next text is American History Reconstruction to the Present, and this one is a hard copy text that we were able to secure. It's a new version of the text that we've been using in this district since I arrived about 7 years ago. I also taught out of it in Cle Elum, Roslyn. This is a text that's well liked by the 3 different Gen Ed U.S. history teachers. And this one here, I'm really pleased with their updated version because what they've done, so U.S. history keeps going. And our old textbook is old. And this new one enables us to get deeper in U.S. history more efficiently. That's always the great challenge, right? We go 1865 to present for our Gen Ed class, and it's difficult to get through that amount of content, and it gets more difficult every year. And so what they've done in this updated version is, I'm just going to advance to my next slide because I'm not really following this. I'll go back. So what it does is it boils down the first 4 chapters, like 193 pages, and fuses those down to like 110 pages. So it makes the earlier part of American history, which isn't even in our content, but is still sometimes addressed as a review unit. It boils that down and shaves a lot of space. It eliminates a later chapter 8 and then carves out the relevant content in there into 2 neighboring chapters. In the 1920s, it takes and fuses 2 of the chapters of the 1920s into 1, enabling us to move more quickly. There's 2 old chapters on World War II, and it fuses those into 1. And then it extends the text on the end of American history. Well, I shouldn't say the end of American history. That sounds pretty doomsday, but, on the more current aspects of American history. So I think this is a no-brainer. It's a text we've used and trusted for a long time. We really enjoy it. And I think this one checks all the boxes for a big win. Excellent. 11.5 out of 12. High marks. Questions?
Board, any questions? No, all right.
Okay, this is the last one I get to talk about.
No, I appreciate all the notes on the rubrics and everything, so.
So we like to do our homework in the history department. So this is the text. This is a text that I'll be using, which is cool. I got to talk about a book that I get to use. So this is for my social problems course. It's college and high school. It's been around for about 5 or 6 years, 6 years or so, 5 or 6 years. This is simply the 9th version of the same text that I'm using now. So the old text uses sociological information from 2016. Okay, it's 9 years ago. And, American society evolves and things really change rather quickly, especially if you're talking about social media and life in the digital world. And so I think it's really important to update this text. Current data is critical to the discipline of sociology. There are over 2,000 updated statistics from the previous book, which is averaged at about 50 per chapter. They cite over 800 new studies that are all within about the last 2 to 3 years, which is amazing for a printed textbook. 80% of the statistical data in the social media chapter are updated and relatively current. I've taught, this will be my third or fourth Mashonas book. John J. Mashonas is kind of known as a standard in the United States for entry-level college texts on sociology. And so it's got high marks on all the rubrics, and we're looking forward to not having to reference 2016 data in 2025, 2026. Excellent. High marks. Oh, don't get to this. Where's Marco's slides?
This is the money.
This is.
He's expensive.
They call mine the money slide.
Okay, I'm going to leave it to Marco to talk about money because this is the last thing I want to talk about.
That's.
Oh, you made it couldn't keep up with you.
Yeah, because I'm so fast. Okay, thanks.
Back, I wouldn't count my kids down on a presentation.
Thank you, Eric.
For that combination there, but it's gonna sound a little bit redundant. It'll be a lot like Eric's. This one I've been using for, I think, 13 years. It's AP. And it will be a college in the classroom. It's college in the classroom approved also. It's an AP vetted text. Pearson makes millions and they have the money to vet these things. It meets all of the many standards that are supposed to be in my syllabus. So it's content and it's skills. It helps them write the 4 basic different types of essays they have to write. I augment it with longer writing, like actual position papers and things like that I think are important for the kids to do. Because when you get to the government classes, the writing is more clipped. APUS people sort of degrade the government people because they say the writing really isn't meaningful enough. And then vice versa. The government people say that APUS people waste a lot of words. So I'm living in both worlds, which is good teaching time. But they match all the district standards. They match state standards. Definitely, I think Eric expressed it well, that textbooks now work very hard not to show too much bias. They have a lot of the point counterpoint stuff. And there's a lot of, I hate to use the word diversity, but because of the last 10 years of what's happened, there is a lot of attention to representing different groups of Americans and different issues. Actually, I think that the text we're going to get in the next month or two will be even slightly more updated. So it should have something from the last election in it, which will be interesting to see. But like Eric said, hopefully, I mean, if we can draw an analog from the Trump administration to the Jackson administration, hopefully, we can see that both of them ignore Supreme Court decisions and like executive action. And I think that they're taught in a way that are accessible and not too biased in a way for kids. And I think they're equally, in their relatively unbiased way, I think I don't know what the Trump administration will look like now, but I would say the ones that we've looked at more as like a Bush compared to Obama for something concrete. And I think they're pretty fair to both of those administrations overall. Things are a little bit different as far as assessments now in our field, though. The materials have everything. They're nice textbooks. I would say the writing in government books in general is not as interesting as history, because history is still trying to weave a story. And a lot of the kids pick that up, even the one that prefer studying the Constitution and contemporary events still sort of miss the history. I'll talk more about the history text we have now, which is a little more skill-based, like Charlie said. But this one's, the style's much like it was before, quite a bit of stats, opens everything up with a contemporary real world or at the most recent possible government example, gets you into concepts, but much more concept-based and study-based than a history text. And I've been using this one, I think, for 13 years. There aren't as many government books as there are history books. There we go. No, I did it one too many. Okay, we really want it. The cost is a big teaser. Okay, the down and dirty on this one, same as government in America, but more of it. This one has, I think, better tools and is more skill-based. They've been working on it longer, and this one was different. I used to do a Norton Narrative History of the United States, which was the best written high school text I've ever seen, but it wasn't as skill-based. It stayed a little more elevated. Kids love to read it, but it was a little harder to use if you're trying to prepare for it. AP test, and this also will be college in the classroom. Finally, Central, after many years, is doing that. The cannibalistic relationship between the district and Central is continuing, so they take some running start. We're getting some college in the classroom, and they're being pressured to do that. But anyway, it's all, fun and love and war. So, but it's very well skill aligned. When I went to this one a few years ago, it had a lot of input from high school teachers. In fact, the person that I originally went to AP boot camp with, who's been just teaching AP US for like 15 or 20 years, Matt Ellington, he had a lot to do with it. I like it. They actually make one that's more skill based, which I don't like as much because you lose some of the narrative and you lose primary documents. I think this one still maintains more humanity along with the skills. So, like I said, it's almost too dialed in for me, but I enjoy them. So before we get to the costs, any questions on the content?
I just have a question over the government in America versus the American history. And you said those are both AP textbooks. Is that taught in one AP class, or are these completely separate AP classes?
Government in America would be government for seniors, and then the AP US is a junior class, history based. Yeah.
Cindy's gonna catch up on history here.
She's getting through it.
I had a quick question just about the review process when you are using or planning on using the same curriculum that you've been using for a longer period of time. Are you comparing them to the same number of different options, or what is that process versus when you're planning on changing the curriculum, using something different?
I looked at, it was 4 different American history texts, and I was sent like 6 gov texts, but 3 of them I sort of dispatched with quickly. I didn't think they're very useful for kids, or they were too simplistic for an AP course. And then I honed down on 3 for the other one. What I liked about these is they do help the kids with the skills. We need the skill base. We can't. Unfortunately, the bad part about AP is it's sort of like a cram class. We start our high school a couple of weeks later than most high schools in the state, but the test is still going to be the first week of May. So we're cramming a lot of material. And I used to teach a comparative gov and a US gov in the same year, and that was really kind of crazy stuff. So I guess the 3 that I focused down on in the end for both where I thought the best combination of content and skills, and these won out on that. Familiarity, of course, was a bias for me. And I think it helps me a little bit pass it on to the kids. There's a little bit passing on a culture, which I don't think should change that much. Kids need a little bit of predictability. So do teachers. Yeah.
Board, any other questions from Marco?
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Jen, do you want me to hit this? Okay, because I'm gonna duck immediately. Okay. Come on, numbers. It
Yeah,
cost almost nothing.
I can get it up there for you.
We already see it.
Yeah.
You guys see it? Okay. Do you want this? Are we?
You can leave it up there. That's fine. So that brings us to the end of all the materials, although Kevin, were you?
I was just going to ask, did you actually want to ask any follow-up questions with science? You were, okay.
Board, do we have any other questions for the wonderful educators here tonight?
I just have a follow-up question. I want to make sure that I understand what we're voting on for the book that we were talking about from year to year or a full 6 years. What will we be voting on tonight?
You are voting on the text. And so, I mean, I guess I could say the plan right now is tentatively to purchase it year to year. But I can also say that the commitment is to ensuring that we have the right text in place. So while we don't have all of the options, I suppose if you want to have the caveat there of you're not comfortable doing the 6 year, which that's perfect. I think that's what we're saying too, is we don't want to do that. So when I say we're exploring options, it's what does their updates look like for a 6 year license? Do they plan to, if they come out with something new, automatically update, which some of them do, digital licenses? So I suppose you are voting on the text for 1 year.
Yeah, you're voting on the text, and then by the way, we have our policy and procedure. Then if there's any significant changes, so if it's an automatic update, we would still bring it back and say, we want to continue to do this. If there's if it's not automatically updated, then but we want to use the updated version, then that would come back. But it doesn't necessarily have to go through. If Eric wants to write a lot of notes, he can do that, but we don't necessarily have to do that next time. But so yes, you're voting on the text, and it will be used until it's time to find something different. But we don't know, since it's all digital. And I actually just looked it up in the middle, like typed in, do they have a plan? They said they updated it in 2024, and all they did was add some little section. So it's not really an update. So my guess is there is no plan to update it in the near future.
So to follow up on Madeline's question, it's only that one text that would be a yearly
Yes.
vote, or bring it. It's just that one text. All the other texts that we would be voting on tonight are for a 6 year.
Correct.
Plan.
And to be clear too, because of a year to year, that will likely, I mean, I don't know what would come next, so I don't know what the cost of what would come next would be. But generally speaking, that would increase the cost purchasing it year to year, because what they do is if you purchase for 6 years, we'll give you a per student price cut. So it will increase it, and it does pose some considerations for how we budget, since it'll be an additional little budget item. It'll be cheaper this year, but it'll be a continued cost until something else comes up.
Yeah, and if after a year or two, it doesn't look like they're going to move and update it, and there's a different text that's updated and better, maybe you can give me permission to come and talk to you again on an off year.
For sure.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
And like science, Jen, that was budgeted, coming in a little under. How about the budget for this one? Is that on par with what you budgeted for?
This one is coming a little over what we actually budgeted for, but it was able to be absorbed from other sections of the T&L budget. There were some pieces that were added, like the AP African American history, and we weren't anticipating upfront the social problems update, which we realized we wanted to have that update to the social problem. So we didn't budget for a couple of things. So it is, I think, about 20,000 over what we budgeted for, but that was easily able to be found because I have budget for new sections, which those essentially kind of are. And so coming in fine.
Any other questions? Who's going to read this one first? All right. So, board, this is an action item. Is the teaching learning update curriculum adoption.
I move to approve the English, science, and social science curriculum adoption.
I'll second.
Has moved that we adopt the English, science, and social science curriculum. Kathy has seconded. Board, any discussion? I'll call a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Thank you all for coming and presenting tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy the final couple of weeks you guys have. Do you need your textbooks? You can take them. No. Oh. All right. Last under administration tonight is Troy, superintendent updates.
Yep, just pretty quick, talking about some things here at the end of the year. So this is our activities next week. I know there's been, Leslie's kind of been keeping everybody up to date, but just remember we have on Tuesday night, the scholarship and awards night in the gym. And then confirmed with Haley, big picture graduation at Kittitas Valley Center Armory on Wednesday. Then on Thursday morning, we have the senior breakfast. Anybody who wants to come in and help serve all of those hungry students. It was quite an adventure last year. It was good. And then, of course, then we have graduation at 7. High school's been doing a great job of communicating some of the changes to our using Nicholson. And so there's a clear bag policy. Everybody will have to go through, including the students, through metal detectors. And so we'll see how that process works. But for those of us attending, they'll open the doors for kids at 5:30, for everybody else at 6. So we'll want to get there somewhere in that ballpark and see. And I'll talk to the high school team to make sure they give us a clue where it's best for us to get into the facility. So anyway, that's what we have going on. Are there any questions about our grad week activities?
I just wanted to make sure that a critical mass of us were going to the big picture graduation. I thought I was going to be able to go, but I ended up with a conflict. So I just wanted to make sure we were represented there as a board, but it sounds like at least a couple are going.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Well, and just let me know. I'll keep in communication with you on anything. Let me know if you have any questions. Strategic plan. We're sorting through the format. We know that we haven't been incredibly enamored with the design. So I have another set of eyes that I trust looking at it. And but the reality is we're not necessarily adopting the design tonight. We're adopting the concepts that we've worked so hard at. So we've already made a couple of minor edits to clean up based on some of the feedback that we've had. For example, Jen, who were you talking with that wanted to change the two C's on
The-
portrait of a graduate.
Dual language task force just happened to note it.
Then we had a soft C. We had all the, we got our 5 C's, and then we had for like the fourth one, we had a soft C first and the hard C second. So we flipped those 2 words. So we're hard C's all the way down. So citizenship was first. And so we flipped citizenship second and connection or whatever's first now. So we're making those kinds of edits, but we're down to that kind of wordsmithing. So you have, originally, we just was absentmindedly sent to Leslie the design, which you'd seen many times. But so then I'm like, oh no, let's pull that off. So if you haven't seen it yet, in the packet is just the wording. You can see that there's been a few edits there, like we've talked about, to try to handle some things. We can still continue those minor edits if anything comes up. But tonight you're voting on the vision, the promise, commitments, priorities, and the portrait of a graduate as our plan. We will continue to work through the design. Of course, would have loved to have had a design that we're all really excited about, but the reality is we want to get that right. And so we're going to take a little bit of time. We really don't need, we were going to kind of do a more soft kickoff here in the last couple of weeks, but always the plan was the harder kickoff in August and September. So we're really going to be just fine doing it this way. So we'll formalize the design. We'll also finalize indicators of success. Probably that should be finalizing indicators of success and starting our discussion of how we want to structure our meetings next year around the strategic plan is probably the meat of our study session in a couple of weeks. That gives us some time to finalize those indicators, get them in as we finalize the design and how we want to incorporate those. And then it allows us to talk about it a little bit again in July, and then kind of set our stuff up as we're moving forward in August to accomplish our goal of addressing the strategic plan through our meetings here. So anyway, we won't have a agenda setting meeting next week because we've got all those other things going on. So I will kind of give you in the weekly update, and then you can give me anything else we're thinking for the study session. The indicators of success, starting to figure out our plan, and then having Jen talk about our SBAC results and things. We've got some really good things to talk about. We have some things that we're going to work on and continue to work on, but considering we, really started a formal school improvement process this year, we have received some pretty encouraging results. Improvements never in a straight line, so we're continuing to find things to work on. But so I think that's probably will be a good mix for us. But any other ideas you have, let me know. So that's really our my quick report for tonight. Does anybody have any questions?
Doesn't look like it. Thank you very much, Troy. Huh? Yeah, later. All right. That takes us into the business portion of our meeting. And first up, Kim, and the financial update.
So tonight I'll be going over April 2025 numbers for us. We are now in 8 months into the fiscal year, and general fund is on target with 67.87% of budgeted revenue coming in and 60.5% of budget expenditures. The fund balance is sitting at 19.77. But I just want to remind everybody, it always goes up at this time because we get our big payment in April for our levy, and then it starts going back down. So just want to remind everybody of that. For the month of April, the district spent $2.03 million for certificated employee salaries for a total of $16.3 million for the year. $774,000 for classified employee salaries for a total of $5.9 million for the year. $1.05 million for benefits for a total of $8.3 million for the year. $273,000 for supplies for a total of $1.9 million for the year. $346,000 on professional services for a total of $4.3 million for the year. $5,000 on travel for a total of $45,000 for the year. $15,000 for capital items for a total of $53,000. For a total of $4.46 million in April, and a total of $37 million for the year. As of the end of April, the general fund had $4.8 million in cash, $8.9 million in investments, and 1.6 million outstanding warrants. And there were no discrepancies between Kittitas County Treasurer and the trial balance. The capital project fund is showing 114.72% of revenue have been received and 2.27% of expenditures have been reported. The fund balance comes in at 4.5 million. As I mentioned for the general fund, we also received our tax levy payment in April. And so that's why it's much higher. And the other reason why it's high is that we received more in-state match than we were expecting. So that's why the budget is way over the budget for revenue. As of the end of April, the capital project fund had 393,000 in cash, 4.1 million in investments, and 0 outstanding warrants. There was a discrepancy between Kittitas County Treasurer and the trial balance. And the reason for this discrepancy is the Kittitas County Treasurer actually receipted in $3,033 into the wrong fund. It was supposed to go into the debt service fund, and they receipted it into the capital project fund. And that will be fixed. You'll see that fixed in the May report. The debt service fund has received 90.67% of the revenue and 72.63% of expenditures have been reported. The fund balance comes in at 4.17 million. On the report that you see two large amounts. The 23.3 million of the financing sources represents the new bond amount after the refunding, and 23.1 million represents the retirement of the 2015 bond after all fees and insurance costs. Then as of the end of April, the debt service fund had 1.9 million cash, 2.26 million investments, and 0 outstanding warrants. And as I mentioned in the capital project fund, there was a discrepancy because of the $3,033 that was receipted into the capital project fund when it should have been receipted into the debt service fund. The ASB fund has received 58.61% of revenue and 39.13% of expenditures have been reported. The fund balance comes in at 639,000. As of the end of April, the ASB fund has 15.9 thousand in cash, 627,000 in investments, and 15.8 thousand in outstanding warrants. And there was no discrepancy between Kittitas County Treasurer and the trial balance. The private purpose fund is a fiduciary fund. There is not a budget status report. The fund balance sits at approximately 34,000. As of the end of April, the private purpose trust fund has $1 in cash and 34,000 in investments and 0 outstanding warrants. And there was no discrepancy between Kittitas County Treasurer and the trial balance. The Transportation Vehicle Fund revenue came in at 6.21% and 0 expenditures. We did pay out some checks, so you'll see that in May. We did get some buses, so that's great. We're waiting on, I think, 2 more still. The fund balance is 941,000 at this time. As of the end of April, the Transportation Vehicle Fund had $1 in cash, 941,000 in investment, and 0 outstanding warrants. And there was no discrepancy between Kittitas County Treasurer or the trial balance. I would like to remind everyone that this report is presented with the information I have currently and is subject to change as we continue through the year. I would also like to remind everyone that revenue sources are used in their current funds for authorized expenditures and can't usually be transferred to be used in different funds unless authorized within the adopted budget and within the accounting laws. Do you have any questions?
Could you repeat what you said about the capital project fund, the additional income that was received?
Yeah, the $3,033.
No.
Which one? Oh, the big amount?
Yeah.
Is it because of the refunding amount? Is that what you're asking about? Yes, yes, we did. When I was budgeting for this year, for the 24-25, we were thinking we were only going to get about $850,000 in the state match. We actually got 1.5, I think it was. So quite a bit more than what we were expecting. Yes.
Board, any other questions? All right. Thank you very much, Kim, for the update. All right, that takes us into the next report, which is an enrollment report.
Yep, enrollment report. We are still, and we will finish the year with slightly more enrollment than we budgeted for, which is positive. our average 3,172 approximately, and we budgeted for 3,157. So we have had a fairly normal cycle to our enrollment this year. We're probably would have to do one of the things we'll want to analyze. Almost everybody loses some students in April and May. But how those rank at the end of the year, we'll look how those rank historically with other whatever our traditional sort of decline is there. And so, but anyway, our enrollment was projected very well this year, and so we are in good shape. Any questions about enrollment?
I had one question, and it's just because the high school started with like roughly 845 students and ended with 775 students. And that seems like a lot that graduated maybe early or something, but it's about 65 different.
Yeah, it's a combination of actually the early graduates don't make much. There's only a handful. It's a movement to Running Start and to online. That's where the majority of those losses are coming from.
Okay, thank you. Board, any other questions? All right, we'll move along. Next up is our strategic plan adoption.
Yep, and this is there's no resolution or anything that goes with this. It's just we talked when we went into the process that we would adopt it, for 5 years through a vote. So the reality is, unless there's any questions, all of you were involved in the process, so you know it very well. So then unless there's any questions, it's just a formality of you to vote to accept it so we can move forward and start planning our implementation.
I move to approve the ESD strategic plan.
I second.
Cindy has moved that we approve the ESD strategic plan, and Madeline has seconded. Board, any discussion?
Just to clarify, that's for 5 years, right? Is that part of it?
Yeah, go 2025 through 2030. Yeah.
Anything else, board? All right, call a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The strategic plan for Ellensburg School District has been approved. Thank you guys and everyone else on the committee who has been part of that. Should be exciting for the next few years, so. All right, board, that takes us into policy. We have 2 policies to review. Nope, 2 policies to approve tonight. First up is policy 2230, transition to kindergarten program.
Correct. So we reviewed these at the study session for a first reading. We're doing the transition to kindergarten policy 2230. It was a minor update to it, but we had not adopted the first version of it. So we're going through a first and second reading. We do have transition to kindergarten. And remember, it came into policy a couple of years ago because it was a loophole for the first significant numbers of years of the program. And then the last biennium, the last long session, they changed it from transitional kindergarten, which was a loophole, to an actual law transition to kindergarten. And for whatever reason, we just didn't adopt the policy. So if there's no changes to what we talked about last a couple of weeks ago. So if there's no questions, you can go ahead and vote.
I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve policy 2230.
I second.
Cindy has moved that we adopt policy 2230, and Kathy has seconded. Board, any discussion? All right, call a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, policy 2230 has been approved. Next up is policy 5011, 5011, sexual harassment of district staff prohibited.
Right, and we went through this at the study session as well. This is very similar to the policy that was in place prior. The updates were in some reference to law, and then they reorganized some of the language without really changing it. They made more bullets. They took from paragraph form, condensed it in under definition, the bullets. Made a few of them based on update, made a few changes based on updates to state law. The actual policy itself is not very different. It's just organized a little bit differently. However, we will there are some procedural changes that go along with some of those minor changes. They're not huge for us. We're already doing pretty much everything, but we have to reorganize our procedure paperwork a little bit as well.
I move we approve policy 5011, sexual harassment of district staff prohibited.
I second.
Kathy has moved that we adopt policy 5011, sexual harassment and district staff prohibited, and Madeline has seconded. Board, any discussion? I'll call a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, policy 5011 has been passed. All right, board, next up, that takes us into our community input portion, and we have public comment. Leslie, could you please get us set up for public comment? Okay, anybody online? All right, well, that is the case. Close public comment. Thank you very much. Yes. Do we have any new bit? No? All right, that takes us into session tonight. All right, no executive session. Clarification and next steps, board.
I just want to make sure, is it better to send an email just so you know what things we can attend next week? And is that helpful if I send an email for the?
It would probably be helpful, yes, if you send an email to Leslie, just so we can plan and let everybody know. Yeah.
Anything else for clarification? All right, that takes us into board calendar, and that was my question I was going to do under board calendar too, which is, are we all planning on doing some of that? And I think it's okay because it's a public and we've done it before. We can all be there or just a few of us, but we don't have to. So, yep. I think I'm there for most of it. Except for now, there's a track thing on Wednesday night. All right, signing of official documents. All right, and board, is there any other business to discuss tonight? All right, thank you very much. I'll go ahead and adjourn.